So here's a question for you. What happens when the key witness in a massive corruption inquiry, the one person who's supposed to untangle this whole web of secrets, has a story that's just a complete maze of contradictions? Well, today we're going to unpack the testimony of Sergeant Fannie Nkosi, a man whose story literally unraveled in real time, right before everyone's eyes.
You know things are bad when the judge leading the whole inquiry uses the word farcical to describe the situation. You see, Sergeant Nkosi was supposed to be this protected, anonymous witness, but a series of frankly unbelievable blunders just blew his cover wide open. It forced him right into the spotlight and really set the stage for a pretty spectacular collapse in his credibility.
And this is the central puzzle we're trying to figure out today. When the entire foundation of a case is built on testimony that's this shaky, how does anyone separate what's real from what's just made up? We're going to dig into the evidence and see for ourselves.
Okay, so let's meet the man himself, Sergeant Fannie Nkosi. At first, he was just known as Witness F. His testimony was supposed to be the key that connected the dots between some really powerful people in law enforcement and business. But once his identity got out, he became the story.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. This map basically shows his alleged network, right? Based on all the evidence that came out. We're not talking about some low-level officer here. The evidence suggests Nkosi was the central hub, kind of like a fixture, connecting these worlds that should absolutely never touch. You've got the city treasury, the top police brass, private contractors, and even high-ranking politicians.
And it gets even weirder. We find out about his nickname, 007. Yes, seriously, like James Bond. Now, Nkosi tried to laugh it off, saying it was just about his zero tolerance for crime. But come on, when powerful people are calling you 007, it kind of suggests they see you as their own personal operative, you know? The guy who gets things done, completely outside the official rulebook. And boom, this message just brilliantly illustrates that point. A major politician who's saved in Nkosi's phone simply as Z sends him the details of a person in a vehicle with this pretty chilling instruction. This is not a normal request to a police officer. This sounds like an order to an asset, and it shows just how a fixer can allegedly be used to bypass the rule of law entirely.
All right, so now let's look at where the story first really started to crack, and that was the timeline. In any investigation, right, the dates, the times, that's the skeleton of the whole story. But with Sergeant Nkosi, that skeleton seemed to be made of rubber.
This table is just stunning because it puts his sworn testimony right up against the cold, hard data. He claimed he met one guy at his house maybe 1 or 2 times, while digital records showed 12 meetings. He claimed 2 key figures first met in late 2024, but their own messages show them coordinating a full 6 months earlier. And meetings he swore were just a week apart, they were actually 14 months apart. I mean, these aren't minor slip-ups. These are foundational cracks in his entire story.
So, what was his defense when he was confronted with these huge contradictions? He just kept falling back on the same few phrases, over and over again. A foggy memory, a simple human error, a mistake. But as all these inconsistencies started piling up, "I cannot remember" began to sound less like an excuse and a lot more like a deliberate strategy.
Of course, sooner or later, you have to follow the money. And in Nkosi's case, 2 very different financial discoveries popped up, and each one raised its own set of deeply troubling questions about his so-called professional neutrality.
Let's start with the big one, 380,000 Rand. That's over 20,000 US dollars in physical cash found in his personal safe at home. Now, for any public official, let alone a police sergeant, a discovery like that demands an absolutely airtight explanation.
And to be fair, he had one. He said the money was from his brother's legitimate sale of a truck, and he had the documents to prove it. The only problem? The documents themselves fell apart. The sale price was different on 2 key forms, and even worse, the legal affidavit was signed and commissioned 3 days before the sale agreement it was supposed to be verifying was even finalized. That's just a logical impossibility. The commission's lawyer basically argued the papers were faked after the cash was found just to create an alibi. What's so crucial here is that this pattern held up even for tiny amounts of money. When he was asked if he'd paid a journalist for information, his first answer was a flat no. Simple enough. But then, when they showed him the bank records, his story did a complete 180. All of a sudden, it was just a token of appreciation. This isn't just a contradiction. It shows how a witness's story can completely flip, under oath, the second they're confronted with evidence they can't deny.
So now we get to the more bizarre, almost clandestine parts of this case. This is where the evidence moves beyond just timelines and money and into the world of secret favors and, well, what really look like coded messages.
Believe it or not, a song by the rapper Tupac Shakur actually became a key piece of evidence. A general sent Nkosi a link to this specific track, and when he was asked what it was about, Nkosi himself confirmed the message was one of defiance. "I'm the last man standing."
So, Nkosi's explanation was pretty simple. We're friends, we both like Tupac. But the commission pointed out the timing. The song was sent on the exact day a rival general was arrested. And suddenly, an innocent song recommendation starts to look a lot like a potential coded message, a way to signal defiance and solidarity when you're under threat.
And you can see his influence just escalate in his relationship with the city's chief financial officer. Look how fast this moves. In November, he's just a professional contact giving advice. By December, he's asking for favors for his family. By January, they're calling each other brothers. And by March, he's somehow in the middle of mediating city payments and asking for tender lists. This is a massive blurring of the lines, bypassing all official oversight. This is what institutional capture looks like in action.
And then there was the video evidence. Surveillance actually caught Nkosi leaving an associate's house carrying a white paper bag. He claimed it just had some soft, foldable t-shirts inside. But when the commission zoomed in on the video, they saw a fairly sharp rectangular shape, a shape his story simply couldn't explain.
So when you put all these little pieces together, the shifting dates, the questionable cash, the coded messages, the unexplained video, they all start to form a very, very clear pattern, a pattern that led to a total collapse of his credibility as a witness.
And here it is, a direct, head-to-head clash. Nkosi swore under oath that his superior, General Sibia, ordered him to leak a confidential arrest warrant to a civilian. General Sibia, also under oath, swore he gave no such order and then flatly accused Nkosi of lying. One of them cannot be telling the truth.
So let's just recap this for a second. He downplayed a dozen visits, he presented impossible timelines, he admitted to leaking confidential police files, he explained away a massive pile of cash with some really faulty paperwork, and his go-to defense was always the same: "I cannot remember." This wasn't just one mistake, this was a pattern, a consistent way of operating. And this quote from the commission's own counsel really just sums it all up. This was the official theory they put directly to Sergeant Nkosi, that he wasn't just forgetting things, he was actively fabricating a new story on the fly, just to fit the evidence he couldn't deny.
So why does this one sergeant's story matter so much? Because it's a potential blueprint for what's known as institutional capture. And what's kind of terrifying about this case is it suggests that capture doesn't always come from the very top. It can be orchestrated from the middle, by a really well-connected fixer who just knows the system, knows who to call, and knows how to make all the official rules irrelevant.
And this is the question that just lingers long after all the testimony is over. The evidence presented against Sergeant Nkosi offers this detailed look at how one person can allegedly operate in the shadows, connecting worlds that should never, ever touch. And it really makes you wonder, how many others are out there quietly doing the exact same thing,